What would you do if you found out that almost everything you've been taught about Jesus Christ barely scratches the surface? Think about it. What if Jesus's most powerful and life-changing words were actually cut out of the Bible? We know today, not because they were wrong, but because they were too revolutionary for comfort. Back in 1945, some shepherds in a remote part of Egypt stumbled upon ancient scrolls that would rock the foundations of traditional faith. The Gospel of St. Thomas and other hidden teachings of Jesus that got kicked out of the Bible over 1,600 years ago. While churches today keep preaching a watered-down version of Jesus all about sin and salvation, these old documents show a completely different spiritual teacher, someone who taught that the divine is already inside each of us. The kingdom of God is within you and all around you, Jesus said, basically challenging the whole idea that we need churches or priests to connect with God. The Bible's secrets in these banned texts are so game-changing that they threaten to topple religious power structures. Here's the truth nobody wants to talk about. These teachings were deliberately thrown out during the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. It's pretty obvious why texts that promoted spiritual independence and direct connection with God were exactly the ones that vanished from the official story. Most people have no idea that Jesus actually taught principles that today we'd call the law of attraction and mindfulness, practical techniques to tap into your divine potential without any middlemen. Are you ready to discover the real teachings of Jesus that got banned from the Bible and find out who you truly are? In 1945, the world witnessed one of the most mind-blowing discoveries in religious history when Egyptian shepherds accidentally found clay jars containing ancient manuscripts near Nag Hammadi. Among these texts was the Gospel of St. Thomas, a document packed with hidden teachings of Jesus that never made it to most Christians throughout the centuries. This Gospel, along with dozens of other texts, was systematically kicked out of the official Bible during the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, an event that permanently shaped Christianity as we know it today. It's almost like someone found a treasure chest buried for centuries, revealing Bible secrets that could completely change our understanding of Jesus' true teachings. Just imagine discovering that much of what you thought you knew about such an important figure was actually incomplete, or maybe even twisted by institutional interests over almost 2,000 years. What makes the Gospel of St. Thomas so extraordinary isn't just its age, but how revolutionary its content is. Unlike the canonical Gospels, this text doesn't tell Jesus' life story chronologically, but presents a collection of 114 sayings attributed to him, many of which never made it into the Bible we know. Serious scholars like Elaine Pagels, author of the Gnostic Gospels, and Bart Ehrman, who wrote Lost Christianities, have spent decades studying these banned Bible texts, showing how they offer a radically different perspective on Jesus' teachings. When someone reads the Gospel of St. Thomas for the first time, it's almost impossible not to wonder, why didn't anyone tell me about this? It's like discovering that only half of a treasure map has been available all this time, while the other, half possibly the most valuable part, was carefully hidden for reasons that go way beyond simply preserving the faith. The hidden teachings of Jesus revealed in these documents could actually completely change your spiritual outlook. The official story tells us that the Council of Nicaea, called by Emperor Constantine, brought bishops together to establish a unified doctrine of Christianity. But what many don't realize is that this was also a deeply political event that determined which texts would be considered inspired by God and which would be banned from the official Bible. The church authorities back then were building a hierarchical institution, and many of the Bible secrets contained in the Gospel of St. Thomas simply didn't fit into this power project. Think of it like a big corporation deciding what information their customers can access and what will be kept secret. Except in this case, the information was about nothing less than the purpose of human existence and our direct connection with the divine. The irony is that these hidden teachings of Jesus were concealed for almost 1,600 years, only to resurface at a time in human history when we might finally be ready to understand them. Have you ever wondered how many other valuable insights might have been deliberately suppressed throughout history because they didn't serve the interests of the powerful? The Nag Hammadi manuscripts were discovered at an interesting time, right after World War II, when humanity was beginning to deeply question its authority structures and seek new forms of spirituality. It's no coincidence that in the decades following this discovery, there was an explosion of interest in alternative spiritualities, mystical traditions, and concepts like Jesus and the law of attraction, all themes that surprisingly seem to echo in Jesus' teachings found in the Gospel of St. Thomas. If you've ever been interested in books like The Secret by Rhonda Byrne or The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, you'll be fascinated to realize how Jesus seemed to be teaching similar principles 2,000 years ago, as revealed in these ancient texts. It's almost like we're rediscovering an advanced spiritual technology that was deliberately removed from public knowledge, like a smartphone in the midst of a collection of rotary phones, simply too advanced to be understood or controlled by the power structure of the time. For those who want to explore these texts more deeply, I recommend starting with The Gospel of Thomas, The Hidden Sayings of Jesus by Jean-Yves Leloup, an annotated translation that puts these teachings in context. The big question that remains is, why were these texts so dangerous that they needed to be banned? The most likely answer is that they presented a vision of spirituality that directly empowered the individual, with no need for institutional intermediaries. Imagine what would happen if, instead of depending on an institution for salvation, people learned they could access the divine directly, through specific practices and knowledge. Jesus' hidden teachings, as preserved in the Gospel of St. Thomas, suggest exactly that, a direct and personal relationship with the divine that didn't require the mediation of an institutional church. To better understand this dynamic, it's worth examining similar cases in history, such as the Protestant Reformation movement initiated by Martin Luther, which challenged the Catholic Church's monopoly on biblical interpretation. The Bible secrets that have been hidden for so long are now available to anyone curious enough to seek them out, revealing a side of Jesus that few know about. And the most intriguing part, as we dive into these ancient texts, we begin to realize that they might contain answers to spiritual questions many of us still ask ourselves today, suggesting that perhaps the next great advance in spiritual consciousness will actually come from rediscovering what was already taught 2,000 years ago. One of the most mind-blowing revelations found in the Gospel of St. Thomas is how Jesus describes the kingdom of God, not as some distant place we'll reach after death or a future earthly kingdom, but as a living reality that's simultaneously present inside us and all around us. In saying 3 of this Bible-banned gospel, Jesus states, "The kingdom is within you and it is outside of you." This single statement challenges centuries of theology focused on a distant paradise or an apocalyptic final judgment. Instead, it suggests that divine reality is an immediate presence accessible at any moment, regardless of religious institutions or hierarchies. Think about how different our spiritual experience would be if, instead of seeking salvation in some distant place and time, we recognize that we're already immersed in divine reality. We just can't perceive it because of our limited awareness. The path to accessing this kingdom, according to Jesus' hidden teachings in the Gospel of St. Thomas, isn't through external rituals or blindly following dogmas, but through a deep process of self-knowledge. In saying 70, Jesus declares, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." This instruction suggests a deep psychological, spiritual process that resembles modern therapy or contemplative practices more than conventional religion. It's an invitation to illuminate the hidden aspects of ourselves, our shadows, unrealized potentials, and innate wisdom. Books like Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way or Brené Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection offer contemporary practical tools that resonate with this aspect of Jesus' teachings. This emphasis on self-knowledge as the path to spiritual enlightenment represents a radical reversal of traditional religious dynamics. Instead of positioning spiritual authority externally, in priests, texts, or institutions, the Bible secrets revealed in the Gospel of St. Thomas suggest that true authority resides in each person's direct experience. Jesus says in saying 5, "Know what is in front of your face, and what is hidden from you will be revealed to you." This principle is vividly demonstrated in contemplative practices like Vipassana meditation or the inner inquiry method developed by Byron Katie in Loving What Is, where the practitioner learns to observe their own direct experience without conceptual filters. What emerges from these practices isn't a rejection of spiritual tradition, but a more mature relationship with it, an ability to discern the lived truth behind words and symbols. In this sense, Jesus' teachings preserved in this banned text seem to suggest that the true master doesn't seek dependent followers, but awakened partners. The language Jesus uses in the Gospel of St. Thomas to describe this inner journey is particularly fascinating when compared with contemplative traditions from other cultures. When he says in saying 2, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." We see a map of the spiritual path that remarkably echoes the stages of practice described in traditions like Zen Buddhism or Islamic Sufism. The stage of being troubled, for example, seems to correspond to what Christian mystics called the dark night of the soul, or what in Jungian psychology would be the confrontation with the shadow, a necessary period of discomfort when our illusions begin to dissolve. To experience this process firsthand, practices like the 10-day Vipassana retreat or Eckhart Tolle's Inner Path provide contemporary frameworks for this ancient journey. At the core of these teachings is the understanding that Jesus and the law of attraction connect in a timeless wisdom about how consciousness relates to manifested reality. The most revolutionary aspect of this vision is how radically it democratizes spiritual experience. If the kingdom of God is truly within and outside each person, then access to the divine isn't the privilege of a religious elite, but everyone's birthright. When Jesus says in saying 49, "Blessed are the solitary and elect, for you will find the kingdom. For you are from it, and to it you will return," he seems to be speaking not of an exclusive, predetermined group, but of those who have chosen the path of self-discovery, regardless of their formal religious status. This perspective has profound implications for how we structure our spiritual communities today. Organizations like Circles of Silence or contemplative Christian gatherings are reimagining sacred spaces as circles of equals, where each person is recognized as carrying innate wisdom, rather than hierarchies where knowledge flows only from top to bottom. As we rediscover these hidden teachings of Jesus, we begin to glimpse what original Christianity might have intended to be, not a religion of blind obedience to external authorities, but a community of seekers committed to their own awakening. One of the most revolutionary aspects revealed in Jesus' hidden teachings, found in the Gospel of St. Thomas, is the radically equal vision of spirituality he proposes. In stark contrast to the hierarchical religious structures that developed in his name, Jesus seems to have taught that all human beings are essentially children of light, innate carriers of divine power and wisdom. In saying 24, he states, "There is light within a person of light, and it illuminates the whole world." This statement doesn't present Jesus as an exclusively divine being, but as an example of the potential that resides in each person. It's like he's saying, "What I am, you can be too." For many who've been taught to see Jesus as an unreachably divine figure, this aspect of the Bible's secrets can be both liberating and challenging. The language Jesus uses in the Gospel of St. Thomas suggests he was more interested in awakening his listeners' spiritual awareness than in creating a body of dependent followers. When he says in saying 108, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become as I am," he seems to be offering a direct transmission of consciousness, not a set of rules to be followed or beliefs to be accepted without question. This teaching model is more reminiscent of the master-disciple tradition found in practices like Zen, where the master's goal is to lead the student to their own direct realization, not establish permanent authority over them. Spiritual writer Ram Dass captured this approach in his work, Be Here Now, where he emphasizes that a true spiritual guide's role is to point to the seeker's innate wisdom, not create dependency. A particularly provocative element of this aspect of the banned Bible teachings is what it reveals about our own essential nature. Jesus consistently speaks to his listeners not as fallen sinners needing external redemption, but as divine beings who have simply forgotten their true nature. In saying 67, he declares, "Whoever knows everything but lacks in self-knowledge lacks everything." This reversal of spiritual priority puts self-knowledge at the center of the path rather than adherence to external doctrines. Transpersonal psychologists like Stanislav Grof and Michael Washburn have extensively documented how deep mystical experiences often involve precisely this kind of recognition, a sudden remembrance of a deeper identity beyond the separate ego, the I. Social implication of this equal vision of Jesus' teachings about our spiritual nature is potentially transformative. If everyone is equally children of light with direct access to divine wisdom, then religious systems that rely on rigid hierarchies of authority lose their fundamental justification. This aspect of Jesus' hidden teachings might explain why they were considered so threatening by the emerging church authorities of the 4th century. They fundamentally undermined the institution-building project that was underway. Contemporary communities like the Quakers, who structure their spiritual life around the premise that the inner light is present in each person, offer a glimpse of how religious practices based on these principles might look. A particularly fascinating aspect of this dimension of Jesus' teachings is how it aligns with contemporary scientific discoveries about our inherent human potential. Studies in neuroplasticity demonstrate how contemplative practices can literally reshape our brain, suggesting that elevated states of consciousness aren't supernatural, but expressions of our natural biological design when properly cultivated. Similarly, research in positive psychology conducted by researchers like Martin Seligman identifies flow states and peak experiences as natural possibilities within the spectrum of human experience, not miracles reserved for saints. This convergence between Jesus' teachings and the law of attraction, the idea that our internal state shapes our external experience, suggests that maybe we're finally developing a scientific language to articulate what spiritual masters like Jesus have been pointing to for millennia. Another fascinating aspect of Jesus' hidden teachings, revealed in the Gospel of St. Thomas, is the surprising emphasis on present moment awareness as the fundamental path to spiritual enlightenment. While conventional religious traditions often direct believers' attention to past events, like the crucifixion, or future ones, like the final judgment, the Bible secrets found in this text present a radically different perspective. In saying 51, Jesus states, "His disciples said to him, 'When will the rest for the dead take place? And when will the new world come?' Then he said to them, 'What you look for has come, but you do not recognize it.'" This extraordinary statement suggests that God's kingdom isn't a future event to be awaited, but a present reality that we simply can't perceive due to our lack of presence. It's like Jesus is saying that salvation isn't beyond the horizon, but right here, hidden only by our inability to be fully present. This dimension of Jesus' teachings deeply resonates with contemplative traditions that emphasize present moment awareness like Zen Buddhism and certain streams of Islamic Sufism. Contemporary spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, in his influential book The Power of Now, articulated how our constant preoccupation with past and future often prevents us from recognizing the fullness and perfection of the present moment. An idea that seems remarkably aligned with the banned Bible teachings. When Jesus says in saying 18, "Blessed is he who stands at the beginning, he will know the end and will not taste death," he seems to be suggesting that whoever can inhabit the eternal now, the point where beginning and end converge, transcends mortality not as a future event, but as a present realization. Try for a moment to interrupt your reading and bring your attention fully to your immediate sensory experience, the feeling of air on your skin, the sounds around you, the expansion and contraction of your breathing. Jesus' perspective on time and eternity in the Gospel of St. Thomas challenges our dominant cultural understanding of linear temporality. In saying 77, he proclaims, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there. This description of omnipresence suggests a vision of reality where the divine isn't separated by time or space, but is the very matrix in which everything exists. Modern physics offers an interesting parallel with concepts like quantum non-locality and Einstein's theory of relativity, which challenge our intuitive perception of time as an absolute linear progression. Neuroscientists have documented how our conventional sense of time is largely a cognitive construction, not an absolute reality. Jesus' teachings about the present moment seem to anticipate these scientific discoveries by 2 millennia. For those who want to directly experience this dimension of Jesus' hidden teachings, contemplative practices like mindfulness meditation offer an accessible path. A simple exercise is to dedicate 5 minutes daily to observing your breath, noticing when the mind strays to thoughts about past or future, and gently bringing attention back to the immediate sensation of breathing. This practice, taught in evidence-based programs like mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, has shown significant benefits for mental health and well-being. Jesus himself seems to have taught a form of mindfulness when he says in saying 59, "Look to the living one as long as you live, lest you die, and then try to see the living one and are unable to see." This instruction resonates with the law of attraction in the deepest sense. Our conscious attention creates our lived reality. The practical effects of this aspect of Jesus' teachings can be deeply transformative in everyday life. When we begin to practice presence in the moment, we often discover that many of our afflictions are created not by current circumstances, but by our mental projections about past and future. As philosopher Alan Watts observed, the past and future are like the imaginary line of the equator, useful for practical purposes, but not really there. This insight isn't just philosophically interesting, but pragmatically liberating. Experiments in positive psychology, like the Gratitude Journal developed by Robert Emmons, demonstrate how practices that anchor us in the present, like daily recording 3 experiences for which we feel grateful, can significantly improve subjective well-being and reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. The Bible's secrets. In this aspect of Jesus' teachings, offer not just a profound spiritual vision, but a practical path to greater inner peace. One of the deepest and most life-changing teachings found in the Gospel of St. Thomas is Jesus' instruction to bring forth what is within you, suggesting that each person carries inside them a unique divine essence that needs to be expressed in the world. In saying 70, he warns, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." This amazing statement suggests there's something deeply dangerous about suppressing our true nature and unique gifts. It's like each of us is a seed containing a specific pattern. A rose can't bloom as an oak tree, nor should it try. Jesus' hidden teachings seem to indicate that our spiritual fulfillment is closely tied to the authentic expression of who we really are, rather than trying to conform to external expectations. Interestingly, this aspect of the banned Bible teachings seems to anticipate modern psychology's discoveries about authenticity and well-being. Researchers like Martin Seligman, pioneer of positive psychology, have identified that a meaningful life emerges when we use our unique talents and strengths in service of something bigger than ourselves. The online tool VI Survey of Character. Strengths allows anyone to identify their natural talents as a first step toward a more fulfilling life. Similarly, the concept of life purpose, or ikigai in Japanese tradition, the intersection between what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at, remarkably resonates with Jesus' teaching about bringing forth what is within us. The warning dimension of this teaching, that what we don't bring forth will destroy us, deeply echoes psychologist Carl Jung's work on the shadow and the danger of repressing aspects of our psyche. In the context of the Bible, Secrets Revealed, in the Gospel of St. Thomas, Jesus seems to be warning that denying our true nature and purpose isn't just a missed opportunity, but actively harmful to our well-being. Think about the consequences of following a life path that fundamentally contradicts who you are. the internal tension, the gradual draining of vitality, the feeling of living a life that isn't truly yours. Tools like Life Design, developed by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans from Stanford University, offer practical methodologies to identify and correct misalignments between our life choices and our intrinsic values. A fascinating aspect of this dimension of Jesus' teachings is how it proposes a balance between the spiritual and material aspects of existence. Unlike ascetic traditions that reject the material world as illusory or corrupt, or purely materialistic, approaches that ignore the spiritual dimension, Jesus seems to be advocating for a harmonious integration. In Saying 22, he talks about making the inner like the outer and the outer like the inner, suggesting that our inner and outer lives should reflect each other rather than being in conflict. This integrated vision resonates with contemporary approaches like embodied spirituality, proposed by theologian Matthew Fox, which seek to unite spiritual awareness with active engagement in the world. What makes this aspect of Jesus' hidden teachings particularly relevant for our time is how it addresses the contemporary epidemic of disconnection from ourselves, from each other, and from the natural world. By inviting us to bring forth what is within us, Jesus seems to be offering an antidote to the alienation that characterizes so many modern lives. Gabor Mate's pioneering work on trauma and addiction demonstrates how many self-destructive behaviors are rooted in disconnection from our true self. Practices like focusing, developed by Eugene Gendlin, offer concrete methods to re-establish contact with our inner wisdom. That's something within us that Jesus urges us to bring forth. The Bible's secrets and Jesus and the law of attraction converge at this point, showing how our external reality reflects our internal truths. We've reached the end of this journey through Jesus' hidden teachings, but really, we're just getting started with an understanding that could change your life. The Bible's secrets we've explored today are powerful tools now in your hands. So, here's the real question. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you keep blindly following what others say is truth? Or will you have the guts to check out for yourself what Jesus really taught? Just imagine how your life could look if you actually practiced these truths, recognizing that God's kingdom is right here inside and around you in this moment, understanding that you're not some sinner waiting for outside salvation, but a divine being who just temporarily forgot who you are. The teachings of Jesus and the law of attraction show that you already have everything you need for spiritual fulfillment. Your job now is to try out these banned Bible teachings firsthand. Start by taking 10 minutes daily to practice being present. Think about Jesus' words while you're looking at the world around you. How would your life be different if you actually lived according to these hidden teachings of Jesus? If you want to go deeper into these mind-blowing insights and discover more Bible secrets, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who could use this ancient wisdom. Until next time, stay awake to the kingdom that's already here, inside you and all around you.